Imagine an army of 400,000 men marching to war.
Right, just a massive unified front.
Exactly. Fully equipped, totally convinced they have, absolute moral superiority.
Yeah.
But then imagine that terrifying war machine just being brought to its knees, suffering these catastrophic losses, all because of like 700 guys with rocks.
It is wild.
It really is. Today we are digging into one of the most brutal, tactically bizarre, and just tragic civil wars in ancient history. But before we unpack all of this, I want to take a brief moment to offer a heartfelt divine blessing for your day and for the entire week ahead. May you find clarity, peace, and purpose in whatever you are navigating right now. We are so glad you're joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you, because what we are analyzing today from Judges chapter 20 isn't just some ancient dusty ledger of names and dates.
No, not at all.
I mean, it is basically a masterclass in military logistics, the dangers of manipulated narratives, and the terrifying psychology of a mob. We are pulling insights from the Holman and the NWA study Bibles, and the details buried in these texts reveal a scenario that feels, honestly, disturbingly relevant.
That is exactly why we need to dig into this, because on the surface, it reads like a straightforward story of crime and punishment.
Right.
But when you look at the actual mechanics of how this conflict escalated,
Yeah.
I mean, the political spin doctoring, the logistical nightmare of ancient warfare, and this devastating scorched earth tragedy, the real question isn't just what happened.
Yeah, it's why.
Right. We need to figure out why an entire nation just decided to burn itself to the ground.
And to understand that, you really have to look at the scale of the mobilization. The text tells us that an assembly gathers at a place called Mizpah.
Okay.
Israelites from Dan to Beersheba, which is, the geographic shorthand for the furthest north to the furthest south, along with the eastern region of Gilead, they all gather together.
For everyone.
Everyone. 400,000 foot soldiers wielding swords. And the text really emphasizes that they gathered, quote, as one man.
Wait, let me just stop you right there.
Yeah.
Because 400,000 armed men don't just, spontaneously drop their plows and march to Mizpah.
No, definitely not.
I mean, in the Bronze Age, just the rumor of an army that size would cause mass panic. So what was the catalyst? How do you get that many people unified so quickly?
Well, you do it through just visceral, unfiltered shock. The catalyst is a Levite. He stands before this massive assembly and recounts this horrifying story. He explains that he was traveling with his concubine and they sought shelter for the night in a city called Gibeah.
Which belongs to the Israelite tribe of Benjamin, right?
Exactly. And according to his testimony, the men of that city surrounded the house, intended to assault him, but instead they abused his concubine all night until she died.
And to make sure everyone paid attention to this, he literally cut her body into 12 pieces. And he sent them throughout the tribes of Israel. This is an incredibly grotesque act, obviously, but as a mechanism to expose what he calls wickedness and outrage. It clearly works.
It works perfectly.
The visceral shock draws those 400,000 men. They are outraged. They are demanding justice. But, okay, let's unpack this. Because reading the Holman Study Bible notes on this completely changed how I viewed this opening scene.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a Levi's testimony. It is basically a masterclass in selective editing.
It absolutely is. The Holman notes highlight a glaring omission in his speech to the assembly.
He leaves out his own cowardice.
Right.
If you read the preceding chapter, the men of Gibeah demand that the host bring the Levite out. And to save his own skin, the Levite is the one who personally shoves his concubine out the door to the violent mob.
Exactly.
But standing in front of 400,000 angry soldiers at Mizpah, he conveniently scrubs that little detail from the record.
Yeah, he crafts a narrative that paints himself purely as the victim.
It's like modern PR spin.
It totally is. And it brings up a really fascinating point about the psychology of mobs. A crowd that large, they don't want nuance.
No, they want a villain.
Right. They want a clear villain and a clear victim. By curating his version of events, he gives them exactly enough horrific truth to flatter their sense of moral superiority, but he leaves out the complicating details that might make them, pause and ask harder questions.
We see this dynamic constantly today.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
You don't have to fabricate a complete lie to mobilize a crowd. You just have to weaponize a half-truth.
You just show the part of the video where you look like the victim and the other guy looks terrible.
Exactly.
And because the Israelites are so eager to be the righteous avengers, they swallow it whole. But that immediate blind outrage creates this massive logistical problem.
Huge problem.
They have 400,000 men gathered together who flat out refuse to go home until justice is served.
And the logistics here are just critical to understanding why the subsequent battles unfold the way they do. You cannot keep an army of that size stationary in the ancient world.
Right, because of supplies.
Right. 400,000 men, plus their animals and support staff, they would strip the surrounding countryside of food and water in a matter of days.
Wow.
It's like a swarm of locusts. If you don't move them or feed them, your army starves before the battle even begins.
Which explains the draft. Because the text says they institute a lottery system.
Yeah.
They select 10% of their men, like 10 out of 100, 100 out of 1,000. That means 40,000 men whose sole job isn't even fighting, it's just foraging and running supply lines just to sustain the war machine.
And that logistical strain, it acts as a ticking clock.
Yeah.
It forces an ultimatum.
Okay, so what happens?
The Israelites send a message to the tribe of Benjamin demanding that they hand over the wicked men of Gibeah, the culprits, so they can be put to death to purge the evil from Israel.
Right. Hand over the guilty or face the entire nation.
Exactly.
But logically, Benjamin's response here makes no sense to me. I mean, they are staring down the barrel of a 400,000-man army.
Yeah.
Why would they choose to protect a handful of criminals? It's tactical suicide. Why not just hand them over and save the rest of the tribe?
Well, this is where the NLA study notes offer some really vital cultural context. In the ancient Near East, the concepts of honor, shame, and tribal solidarity, they often completely superseded objective justice.
Oh, interesting.
For the tribe of Benjamin, submitting to an ultimatum from the other tribes would be a massive loss of autonomy and honor.
So they don't even see it as a justice issue.
Right. They view the demand not as an appeal for justice, but as a direct threat to their sovereignty. So they choose tribal loyalty over national integrity.
Wow.
They rally their forces, gathering 26,000 swordsmen from their various cities, plus a very specific group of 700 chosen men from the city of Gibeah itself.
And this brings us back to that massive disparity in numbers. 400,000 Israelites against 26,700 Benjamites.
It looks like a steamroller.
It really does.
Yeah.
But those 700 chosen men from Gibeah completely changed the calculus. The text notes two distinct features about them. First, they were left-handed, and second, they could sling a stone at a hare and not miss.
And we really need to dispel the modern idea of a sling as like a children's toy.
Yeah, it's not a rubber band slingshot.
Exactly. Ancient slings were devastating military weapons. A trained slinger used a leather pouch and two cords to whip a lead projectile or a heavy stone using centrifugal force.
With a sniper rifle.
Basically, yeah. The release speeds were comparable to early firearms. They could outrange archers, and the blunt force impact could easily shatter bones, even through armor.
Okay, but why does the text specifically emphasize that they were left-handed? Is that just a random detail?
Not at all. It is a crucial tactical advantage. Ancient infantry fought in tight formations, often interlocking their shields to form a wall. Kind of think of an early phalanx.
Okay.
Because the vast majority of soldiers were right-handed, they held their shield in their left hand and their weapon in their right. This meant an entire shield wall was designed to protect the left side of the body and defend against attacks coming from right-handed opponents.
Oh, so the right side of an ancient soldier's body was essentially his blind spot, the unarmored side.
Exactly. Now introduce a squad of elite left-handed slingers. Like a southpaw boxer, they change the angle of attack.
Wow.
Their projectiles are coming from a trajectory that completely bypasses the traditional shield wall, striking the unprotected weapon side of the advancing infantry.
That makes so much sense. It completely neutralizes the advantage of sheer numbers if your front line just keeps getting dropped by artillery they can't even block.
Right.
But there's also a brilliant linguistic irony here that the NWA notes point out.
Yes, I love this detail. The name Benjamin literally translates from Hebrew as son of the right hand.
That is so wild. The tribe of the right hand is relying on a lethal squad of left-handed marksmen to defend them.
Yeah.
That detail just perfectly captures how upside down this entire civil war has become. Nothing is functioning the way it is supposed to.
No, and that dysfunction becomes violently apparent on the very first day of battle.
Right, so Israel goes to Bethel to consult God. They ask who should lead the attack against Benjamin. God says, Judah will go first.
Yep.
So they march out, overwhelmingly confident. But instead of an easy victory, Israel marches into an absolute slaughter. The Benjamites killed 22,000 Israelites on day one.
The shock to the Israelite system must have been profound.
22,000. So they retreat, they weep before the Lord until evening, and they ask if they should fight their brothers again. God says yes.
Right.
They march out on day 2, and they lose another 18,000 men, 40,000 casualties in 2 days, fighting an army a fraction of their size.
It's unbelievable.
I have to push back here because this is the part that confuses a lot of people. They literally went to Bethel and asked God for direction. They had the moral high ground of punishing a terrible crime. So why did they suffer such catastrophic losses if they were doing what they were told?
Well, it comes down to the posture of their approach. The study notes provide a brilliant breakdown of the spiritual and psychological state of Israel here.
Okay, what do they say?
In those first 2 days, they were operating entirely on presumption. Yes, they went to Bethel. Yes, the Ark of the Covenant was there, tended by Phinehas, Aaron's grandson.
Right.
But they weren't genuinely seeking God's will. They were treating the Ark like a lucky charm to endorse a decision they had already made.
Oh, I see. They didn't ask if they should go to war initially. They just asked who should lead the charge.
Exactly. They were trusting in their sheer military might, the 400,000 men, and simply expecting a divine rubber stamp.
Yeah.
They were arrogant. They believed their righteous indignation guaranteed a victory. But getting utterly routed twice, losing 40,000 brothers in the dirt outside Gibeah, that completely shatters that arrogance.
It forces a total system reset.
Yes, it does.
Because on the third day, their approach is completely different. The text says, all the people went up to Bethel, they sat there weeping before the Lord, they fasted all day until evening, and they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings.
Notice the shift there. It goes from a quick tactical inquiry like who goes first, to deep communal repentance.
Wow, yeah.
They stop treating God as a vending machine for military success and recognize their own brokenness. They humble themselves. And only after this profound shift does the divine response change.
Right, because this time, God doesn't just tell them to go. He gives them a promise. He says, tomorrow I will deliver them into your hands.
And that spiritual alignment leads directly to a massive tactical shift.
Totally.
For the first 2 days, they tried to brute force the situation. They marched tens of thousands of infantry straight into a fortified position defended by elite artillery.
It was a meat grinder.
Exactly. But on day 3, they decided to actually use strategy.
Right. They employ a maneuver that closely mirrors one of the most famous battles in Israelite history, which is Joshua's ambush at the city of Ai.
Yes. And the mechanism of this trap relies entirely on exploiting the enemy's overconfidence.
Break down the mechanics of that for us. Because they don't just charge the front gates again. They set an ambush of 10,000 chosen men entirely hidden around the city of Gibeah.
Right. So the main Israelite force advances on Gibeah exactly as they did on the first 2 days. When the clash begins, the Benjamites sally out of the city to meet them in the field.
Okay.
The Benjamites strike first, killing about 30 Israelites right away. So in the minds of the Benjamite commanders, history is just repeating itself.
They think they're winning again.
Exactly. They think, we are routing them just like before.
But those 30 casualties are a sacrifice to sell a feigned retreat.
Yes.
The Israelites aren't breaking, they are faking it. They start pulling back, running away from the city along the roads leading to Bethel and Gibeah.
Yeah.
And the Benjamites take the bait completely.
In ancient warfare, a feigned retreat is incredibly difficult to execute because a fake panic can quickly turn into a real panic if the discipline breaks.
Right, people get actually scared.
Exactly. But if it works, it is devastating. By chasing the retreating Israelites, the Benjamites draw themselves further and further away from their fortifications.
Leaving the city completely unguarded.
Yes, extending their lines and leaving Gibeah completely exposed.
Which is when the trap springs.
Yeah.
The main Israelite force, the one that was supposedly running for its life, suddenly stops at a place called Baal Tamar.
Right.
They turn around and lock their shields. They hold their ground.
Huh?
Meanwhile, the 10,000-man ambush squad bursts out of hiding behind the Benjamite lines.
Oh, man.
They storm the now empty city of Gibeah, put any remaining defenders to the sword, and set the entire city on fire.
And that fire is not just meant to destroy supplies. It is a highly calculated psychological weapon.
Yeah, the text mentions a massive, thick column of smoke rising into the sky. And you have to put yourself in the sandals of a Benjamite soldier right then.
Yeah.
You are out in the open field, chasing the enemy, convinced you're about to win this war. Then, someone shouts and points behind you. You look back and see an enormous pillar of smoke rising from your home.
It is the ultimate psychological breaking point.
Yeah.
When an ancient soldier sees his city burning, he knows his supplies are gone, His family is likely dead or captured, and he has absolutely nowhere to retreat.
It's all over.
Right. The morale of the Benjamite army doesn't just dip. It evaporates in a single heartbeat. Panic sets in.
And precisely as that panic takes hold, the Israelites, who are holding the line at Bel Tamar, go on the offensive.
Yeah.
The Benjamites realize they are caught in a massive pincer movement. They turn and try to flee eastward toward the wilderness, but the terrain traps them.
And the text says the Israelites surrounded Benjamin, pursued them relentlessly, and trampled them down.
All the tactical advantages Benjamin had, the fortified city, the left-handed slingers, they're rendered entirely useless. They are completely crushed.
From a purely military perspective, the ambush was a perfectly executed maneuver. But, as the smoke begins to clear, the reality of what just happened transitions from a tactical victory into an absolute tragedy.
Yeah. The body count is staggering. 25,100 valiant Benjamite swordsmen fall that day.
Unbelievable.
The text provides this grim breakdown. 18,000 are killed in the main rout, another 5,000 are gleaned, which is essentially hunted down and picked off along the highways, and a final 2,000 are killed as far as a place called Gideon.
And out of an initial fighting force of 26,700, only a tiny fractured remnant manages to survive.
How many?
Exactly 600 men escape the slaughter by fleeing deep into the wilderness, where they hide in the caves at the Rock of Rimmon for 4 months.
600 men left out of an entire tribe. But this is where the story takes a turn that is just genuinely stomach-churning.
Yeah, it gets much worse.
The NAA study notes highlight a theological and historical reality here that changes the entire complexion of the deep dive. The victorious Israelites don't just secure the battlefield and declare victory, they march through all the remaining Benjamite towns. They burn every single city to the ground, and they put every living thing to the sword. Men, women, children, and livestock.
This is definitely the darkest element of the entire account. The notes explain that Israel applied a concept known as the harem.
The Herod.
Yeah, the ban. It was a divine decree of total destruction, basically a scorched earth annihilation.
Wow.
And it was a severe judgment strictly and uniquely reserved for the Canaanites during the initial conquest of the Promised Land, intended to completely wipe out the deep-seated idolatry of those foreign nations.
But they aren't fighting the Canaanites here. They are fighting their own brothers.
Exactly. They took the absolute most extreme form of judgment, a tool of divine warfare meant only for the most corrupt foreign nations, and they unleashed it upon their own flesh and blood.
That is just awful.
The righteous indignation that began back at Mizpah, the genuine desire to punish the men of Gibeah for a horrific crime, it just mutated into a blind, unchecked rage.
Yeah.
In their pursuit of justice, they nearly erased one of the 12 tribes of Israel from existence.
It is a terrifying testament to how easily a noble cause can be corrupted. I mean, when you pull back and look at the entire arc of this conflict, the mechanics of the disaster are so clear.
They really are.
You start with a legitimate grievance, but then you filter it through a manipulated narrative. The Levite curating the outrage.
Right.
You add the stubborn pride of tribal loyalty, where Benjamin refuses to hold their own people accountable.
Yeah.
And then you fuel the entire machine with presumptuous, unchecked anger, where the Israelites assume God is just a rubber stamp for their violence.
Yes.
And before you know it, a quest for justice literally devolves into genocide.
It serves as a profound warning about the extreme fragility of justice. Justice requires truth, yes, but it also requires proportion, and it absolutely requires humility. The Israelites started this campaign trusting entirely in their own numerical strength and their own moral superiority. And because they lacked the humility to weigh their actions, they ended up committing atrocities against their own people that mirrored the very wickedness they originally set out to punish.
Which leaves us with a deeply provocative thought to carry with us. A question for you, the listener, to mull over as you navigate the conflicts in your own world, whether that is in your community, your politics, or, your own family.
Yeah, because we all experience moments where we feel completely justified in our anger.
For sure.
Much like those 400,000 Israelites standing at Mizpah, we feel certain that we hold the moral high ground. But how do we ensure that our pursuit of justice doesn't turn us into the very monsters we set out to defeat?
Right.
How do we keep our righteous indignation from becoming a scorched earth campaign that destroys the people around us?
That is a heavy but incredibly vital question to sit with. A huge thank you to everyone for joining us on this journey through Judges 20 today. We unpacked a lot of ancient strategy and dark history, but it is clear that human nature hasn't changed nearly as much as we might like to think. God blesses all the listeners, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.